My beautiful souls, welcome back to the Lioness Den podcast, where we dive deep into the messy, magical, meaningful parts of love, life, and everything in between. I'm your host, Rochelle Janelle, and today we're going to talk about something that does not get enough airtime: incompatibility in relationships. Yeah, I said it. Not cheating, not betrayal, not falling out of love. Just those quiet gaps between two people who just aren't a match. And that applies to two people who really do love each other, but the incompatibility is there. And when you avoid all of the red flags and proceed down that road, your entire relationship is always going to feel like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, literally. Been there, done that. Let's be real. How many of us have stayed in relationships way past the expiration date, hoping that love would be enough? I know I have. I stayed 7, 8, 9 years past the expiration date, and I knew on day one that I shouldn't have gotten married. Because, let's think about it. We as women, we are taught that love conquers all, right? So today, let's unpack what it means to love somebody, but know and recognize the signs of incompatibility, the red flags that exist that are waving from the very beginning. And because your partner is nice or sweet or kind, despite all of the efforts, you know that the incompatibility is there. You are not a match. And what is incompatibility really? It's really not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about fundamental differences, things that really, really matter, values and vision, and how you want your life to be. And if you partner with someone that has they're on a different path, it doesn't make them wrong. It makes them wrong for you. And let's be real, relationships are hard enough, right? It's hard enough to bring two people together with two different backgrounds and two different personalities to then complicate that situation when you aren't aligned on very fundamental things. And I think a lot of women choose to stay in that situation rather than accept the fact that you're not compatible with someone, because it doesn't seem like it's a good enough reason, right? But I'm here to tell you compatibility is reason enough not to move forward with spending your life with someone. It is. At the end of the day, let's say it doesn't work out. You know what the reason is in California to get a divorce? Irreconcilable differences, which in of itself is incompatibility. Even personally, like I turned 60, right? I turned 60 and I'll be 61 this year. And one thing is for certain is that I'm not the same woman. I've gone through my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. And here I am embarking on a whole new area of life, being retired and looking at 61 this year. But there's certain things that have stayed steady throughout all of the seasons in my life. My core values, how I look at family traditions, how I look at long-term goals, how I wanted my lifestyle to be. Those things have never altered, despite all of my periods of evolution. And so, given that, who you choose as a mate has a huge impact on whether or not you're able to be authentically yourself, to be you, to be true to you, so that you're not living a life of, being fake for somebody else or changing who you are. If you're a young single woman, I want you to ask yourself today, as we're talking through this podcast, when was the last time you sat down and literally thought about, wrote, spoke into the universe? What are your non-negotiables? What are things that you just cannot negotiate on, because it would put you in a realm in which you are not living authentically you? Because let's be honest, most of us don't choose a mate based upon what our non negotiables are, right? You go out there, you find somebody you like, they look good, they seem to be a good fit. Then you invest all of this time and energy into someone that is not compatible. It's almost like I'm going to go and shop for a car, but I don't actually know what I want. I don't know what I can afford, and I don't know what's a good fit. I don't know what kind of cars it fits within my lifestyle. I'm just going to get a car, and then when I get the car home, I'll figure it out. Well, that's why it's so important to know what you want. What can you negotiate on, and what exactly are your non negotiables? So let's unpack a few, right? A few that you might want to consider. The first one being core values. And what I mean by that are like things as important as religion, politics, and family traditions. Have you guys been on the internet lately and seen some of the couples that have divided over politics because of the heated division that's going on in our country right now, and how divorces are happening across the United States over politics alone? And it's not really, oh, I'm a Republican and I'm a Democrat. It's fundamental differences on how you think. And do you actually think that that just came up, or do you think that that has been an undercurrent in their relationship all along? Family traditions can rip a couple into shreds. Who are we going to spend the holidays with? My family does this, and your family does that. And when the kids come along, it gets that much more complicated. And let's not even touch on religion. Those are things that are unimaginable, that a couple would come together, get married, have kids, and not have found some type of alignment on what religion are we going to practice. Am I religious? Is faith important to me? A lot of people enter into relationships and marriage without having those conversations. Those are what you would consider core values. Now, let's talk about communication. And it's thrown out there widely like, oh, our communication needs to improve. Well, it's more than just our communication needs to improve. It's literally down to what type of communication style you have. I mean, some people are just innately wired to avoid conflict, to avoid having those hard conversations. And other people are in your face, like, we need to deal with this and we need to deal with it now. And communication is one of those things that has a through line into everything, right? So once your communication breaks down, you can't talk about money. You can't talk about the kids. You can't talk about something that your partner did that really, really bothered you or hurt you or said something hurtful. You can't talk about anything, because communication is one of those fundamental things that are needed in order to make a relationship work. And it's so easy to lose. It's so hard to get back. I hate to bring up zodiac signs, but I'm a Leo, right? So I tend to communicate very direct. And that doesn't go over with a lot of people, but it does align with my husband, because he needs direct communication. Like all of these undertones and throwing out hints and, I don't know, and all of that, that doesn't work. So I'm very direct. I say what I want. And I wasn't always like that, right? That was part of my evolution. As I got older, I realized that nobody's going to be able to read your mind. You got to be able to say what you want and mean what you say. So if I feel like he said something to hurt me, oh, he's going to hear about it. And it's going to be very specific. You did this at this time, it hurt my feelings, and here are the reasons why. And that way, at the end of the day, I can be rest assured that I left everything on the table. I didn't leave anything unseen. The communication was clear, and that gives him an opportunity to make the right correction. I used to have a coworker, right? I worked with this lady, and her personality was very like timid and kind of quiet and passive. And she was married to a man who was just the opposite. And she used to come to work, right? And she would tell stories to a small group of us about, my husband did this and that. And I would specifically ask her, well, did you tell him? Did you tell him? Did you say what you're saying to us? Did you say that to him? We really have to be able to communicate, men and women. We have to be able to look our partners in the eye and tell them exactly what we need. So, we've talked about core values and we've talked about communication. Let's talk about financial incompatibility because, in my opinion, this is the marriage killer. If you are not aligned on the topic of money, this is where how somebody values money, spending habits, saving habits, how you want your lifestyle to be, all of those things are centered around money. And those money conversations need to happen very, very early on. This is something that cannot wait. However, this is a topic that most couples avoid at the beginning of the relationship. Let me just say this, I retired 2 years ago. And I have literally seen couples not able to retire, not because of the couple spending habits, but because of one or the other. It only takes one of you to be financially irresponsible to then hold you both back from the life that you deserve. Because let's be honest, debt management is part of financial responsibility, right? So if your partner is saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt or not able to save, and you are married, you're a married couple, you're basically all one pot. And that impacts your ability to retire and not have to work for the rest of your life. So choosing the right mate and aligning on that financial piece is crucial. Now, lastly, let's talk about life goals. Where you want to live. Do you want to have kids? Do you not want to have kids? What are your career aspirations? What do you want to pursue in life? Lifestyle. Are you sedentary? Do you want to sit at home? Is your partner active and wants to get out and do outdoor activities? All of those things cannot be ignored because as you navigate life, like I said earlier, um, you're going to evolve. Things are going to change. You're going to change, but there are fundamental things that are going to be consistent. And we as women, we think that the only reason to leave a relationship or to end a relationship is toxic traits or toxic red flags. And we kind of avoid the opportunity to look at, hey, we are just not compatible. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. If you're not compatible, you're just not compatible. And why do you think women stay in situations beyond the expiration date? I think they stay because, it feels like we were kind of raised to fix it. We're nurturers, make it work. You know how many of our grandmothers and mothers stuck it out knowing that it wasn't a good fit? And I don't want this episode to have an undertone of negativity around relationships. What I want to do is highlight the opportunity to know what you want, seek what you want, and don't settle for less than that. And on those core values, those things that are truly important, the things that are going to really come up in every relationship, those are the things that we need to look at as women before we get married, before we have kids. You know what they are. Because I don't believe that incompatibility is always a deal breaker, but I think incompatibility on certain topics could be. If you aren't aligned on those things that we talked about, those are glaring red flags that need to be looked at. And if you aren't able to come together and have a meeting of the minds or some type of alignment, there's going to be trouble in the water. I guarantee you that. So, ladies, let me tell you something. Listening to your intuition, using discernment, and knowing what you want will save you years and years of heartbreak and letdown and disappointments, especially if you have not had kids yet and you have not been married yet. This is the perfect opportunity to pause if you're in a relationship that you know is not a good fit. And listen, I'm an advocate for relationships, but we all deserve to be in one that fits, not one that you have to force. If you're in a relationship that you're on the fence, let's say, some of this resonates with you, you know that maybe this is not a good fit. All I'm asking is that you take a look at your situation with a clear mind and be courageous and don't ever bring kids into a quote unquote maybe situation, because marriage is hard enough alone. But just know that you're not too much. You're not. You're not too much for the right person. If you have to contort yourself to be a completely different person to be with a partner that you're with, then you're not compatible. You're not too much. Ladies, thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope that this episode resonated with you. And if it did, share it with a friend. And until next time, take care of your heart. Love y'all. Bye.